laptops.
Never too many, never.
All right, well, we're live. Cool. So, all right, it's 10 a.m., so we'll get started. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the May 26th Octant Community Meeting. Now, this is time flying by, so pretty much end of May now. And I think we have a short agenda today, so I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing my screen, and we'll get started. Boom. All right, and I have to do this. Go. There. Go. All right, so what are we looking at? The first item is an item that I put on the list on the agenda, and for anyone who doesn't have this link, this is the HackMD link. It's also the same agenda link that you can find on the Slack channel, and this is open to editing for everybody, so if there are any items to be added for this agenda, just feel free to throw it in. Just a quick note again, there's also a YouTube stream, so if the Zoom meeting is inconvenient, or if you just don't want to use Zoom for any reason, you can just use the stream link instead. Cool. So we have this first item here is the Reprioritize NPM error. So this has been a problem that's been bugging us for a really long time. It really just, sure, okay, logs are no longer available. But essentially we have this NPM error, and it's not very clear on why this is happening, but it's responsible for a lot of our flakiness in testing, especially around anytime we do NPM related things. I think we see it more on Mac OS, but it's also possible that it's happening on Windows as well. And it's certainly a piece of the tool chain that we want to go away because it's really annoying. It doesn't look great and rerunning tests. So yeah, so this is an example of what it looks like. At first we thought it was a caching thing, so we actually verified the cache, and well, then we deleted the caching in CI environment, so now there is no caching whatsoever, and we still see the same error. So we've ruled out caching, so the next approach might be some sort of NPM or node version mismatch. So I'm reading about, I guess, enforcing engines in the package JSON file. So hopefully that resolves it. So we're trying this out. I think as we discussed before, this is just really annoying to solve because GitHub Actions don't have local test runners. So the best way to go about this is just to push code a lot to iterate. And so that's just an unfortunate part of the situation here. But I'm going to reprioritize this. It's kind of been around for like the last 3-4 months, and I really want to get this away, or if not, just modify the toolchain. So then we just work around this issue. But I don't like, this is getting to the point where it's not acceptable. So I'm gonna move this into the sprint. Cool. Any questions about that? Cool. No questions. We will move on to the next item. Octant RBAC and informers. So this one is another older issue, and it's really the thing that I personally have been working on the majority of the sprint. But the idea is that if you are running Octant on a restricted RBAC environment, so like if you're using a service account that can only view certain resources instead of being able to have like clustered list permissions, you'd end up with a screen that looks like this, where you're pretty much like seeing an empty Octant dashboard. And that's just not a great experience. And this has, like, depending on which version of Octant you're using, you would be able to see certain things, but I think we've changed the way that how we basically talk to the Kubernetes cluster using informers over the over the past several months. And I think if you look at the history of the dynamic cache.go file, we've rewritten that maybe 3 or 4 times. So this is going to be something that we're gonna fix. I think overall, historically, it's just been this balance between having a fast resource access, so just being able to access all the items quickly, versus being able to check everything. If you can check for permissions to have that resource, which ends up slowing it down. So it's sort of like this speed versus accuracy trade-off. I'd say, if that's accurate. And I think we have a pretty decent solution. Like we figure out like what are the bottlenecks within the client Go Informer code, but also what we need to do to avoid hitting these RBAC issues. So hopefully we'll see something for that coming up this week. It'll definitely come into the next release. I know that's a pretty generalized way of talking about it, but if anyone's interested in like the nitty gritty, we can also talk about that either offline or Slack channel or at some other point. Any questions, comments, concerns about this, or if anyone just wants more context in general? Going once, twice.
I'll just add a little bit more in saying that each iteration that we've done on the dynamic cache has surfaced the errors in kind of a different way and let us get a little bit more introspection into what is actually causing the issue. And so now we have this error message coming out that's like very clear of like, this service account is not allowed to start a watcher for this resource, instead of just kind of like a random failure here or a random failure there for a PVC or some other resource. So that's why Sam was able to actually get in there and determine a good solution to finally resolve this error that's been kind of going through different like the error has always been there, but the messages that were getting spit out by Octant kept changing as we changed, or as we like tried to patch over it with a little thing here and there. So it's nice to finally get good, clear error messaging around why it can't do things.
Yeah, totally. I definitely agree about that, right? We can even see like this original PR message, object kind is missing an unstructured object, has no kind. Like that's not really an actionable thing. So it's certainly a lot getting better. And we're pretty close. Where I think we're gonna, yeah, we're getting pretty close. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get it right this time around. Cool. All right. Well, we will jump on. Or any other questions, comments, concerns about this one? Okay. Well, it is a complex and ongoing thing, and like we're also waiting for some upstream work as well. So we'll make a pass here, and hopefully in the future, this will just get easier to do. And if not, there's also some talk about us potentially building our own watchers, but we'll leave that for another day. Okay, open Q&A. Let's see. Why is Resource Viewer Graph not a standalone component? Let's see.
Yeah, I put that in. I was wondering, why while I was working on some of the last PRs and the Resource Viewer, especially on the things that are kind of plugin others facing. It seems that the Resource Viewer Graph would be a good candidate to be a standalone component. I know there's some plugins out there. I think Knative might be the only one currently using the graph, and it's a little awkward. And I think the only reason they can do it is because it's a JavaScript plugin. So to make that a little easier, it seems that having a standalone component would be helpful. So I was just wondering, is there any historical context on that? That's a question for Sam and Wayne that have more insight in that. And
mainly that there hasn't been a huge demand for it to be a standalone component, and since it, like, why make a public API that we then have to start maintaining and versioning and deprecating when there's no incentive to do so is mainly it. There was a request a while back from like the Tecton plugin. They were wanting to display some graphs or some flow charts, I should say, and ultimately they ended up using the GraphViz plugin to do that, or the GraphViz component to do that.
Right.
So they just kind of went, and so I think plus we've added some other new components that address some of the specific use cases of why someone might want to use the Resource Viewer component, like timeline is there now, and some other things that like weren't there before that someone might have wanted to like co-opt and use the resource viewer for, just because it drew lines between boxes. And so I think there's no reason it's not, but the main reason it isn't is because until we were getting like formal requests to make it a component, we were just going to keep developing it and being able to modify it and change it. I'm thinking of the last set of changes we made to it were pretty, it would have broke anyone who was using it when we did that refactor, because the JSON is completely different. So it just gives a little more freedom. I'm not against it. I think we're approaching the point at which the resource viewer API itself could be well exposed, like how to add an edge, remove an edge, things like that. And so as long as we get the abstraction right and we're not exposing any of the implementation detail that we are likely to change underneath, then I'm for it.
Cool. Yeah, makes sense. I was just wondering. Eventually, I mean, obviously, if there's more interest from community, we can definitely do that. I feel for everybody as a plugin developer who wants to use that would definitely be huge help. So.
Yeah, totally agree. I think the being able to create your, like, especially for the CRDs, right? That's what becomes really like useful, is being able to create a custom resource graph for your custom resource graph for your custom resource. Yeah, that's right. The word custom in there is an option. So yeah, being able to create that would, I think, be really useful. And like you said, the Knative plugin is able to do it now because they're a JavaScript plugin, and so they're just inserting the JSON blob manually into their content response. But yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think creating an issue, if we don't already have one, to make it a standalone component and getting it into reference.octant.dev is something we can try to prioritize in probably like in a release or two, like just as something we can put in there to get to, because I do think it'd be useful.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I'll open an issue.
Awesome. Well, that's any other follow-ups for questions about Resource Viewer and just being a consumable component? I don't really have too strong of an opinion on this one. I think it's a great thing to have. Probably the interesting piece here would be if someone were to use the Resource Viewer as just an arbitrary graph, what would they be graphing if not a Kubernetes object? And that could lead to some very interesting spaces, right? Like, for example, CI/CD workflows, but then that is met by GraphViz. So we do have some support for that type of line, but maybe there's something that a resource viewer could do potentially that isn't covered yet. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, and I think as we get more people using it like that, it'll probably expose more interesting feature requests. I know, like, the direction of things has been something that has been talked about, which is in a generic, like, doing that generically is very difficult. But if someone was going to create like a BPF plugin and show like network and routing stuff, if the resource viewer was available to then like show direction, right, and flow, they would be able to model that. So yeah, I think exposing it as a component opens up the doors for a lot of interesting use cases, and then those use cases will allow us to kind of extend the baseline features of it to be more generally useful.
Cool. Thank you. That's an awesome exploration of this. So yeah, please do open an issue for this, and we definitely have to capture this and get this prioritized. All right. So does anyone else have any other additional Q&A? I have one more thing that came to mind. This is just more of a housekeeping thing. But I think we bumped, if we go to our projects page,
Yeah, we did
we
bump it.
bumped out our release to June 1st. So a quick heads up from, I guess it just gets bumped out a week. So I'll add it here. Release 2.21 bumped to 6.122. There we go.
Huh?
What's up?
Just 2.1.
Oh, shoot.
You're
I am I'm a time traveler. Sorry. To future. T2. Yeah, well, yeah, it's about that.
Ignore that. Never mind. Nothing to see here. Also, do we want to introduce Liam?
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, we have an intern who's going to be working on the Octant project for the next 12 weeks. Liam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So hi everyone. I'm Liam. I am working out of a DC suburb, specifically in Northern Virginia. I'm a current junior at WPI, and I have a background in mostly front-end web development with Node. But I've recently been taking some classes about distributed systems and Go. So this is a really cool chance for me to learn a lot more about something I'm not too familiar with. Specifically, I am interested in, optimizing code, making things run fast on hardware, those types of things. And I think I'm going to be learning a lot about, how you can use Kubernetes or Kubernetes, as it's supposed to be pronounced, to do so. So yeah, looking forward to working with you all and meeting everyone a bit more in the coming weeks.
Awesome. Thank you. And we're happy to have you on the team. Cool. Anyone else have Q&A? Going once? Twice? Okay. Well, if no one has any other questions, I think we can call it a day. And we'll see y'all next week.
Thanks, Sam.
All right. Later, y'all.
Thank you.